All right, we are talking the Katy ISD District 196A. There's Jon Poorman from the Houston Chronicle, ready to break down another one as he's constantly knocking these out for us. We appreciate that, Jon. Katy District, it's all Katy squads. And, Katy is that offensive juggernaut with the running backs. And it seems like they got one now for the next 2 years with Tremaine Hill. He did such a good job as a sophomore. And that's the part you key in on. He was a sophomore. So now he's got 2 more years only to get better and try to challenge the record books if he can. I don't know. That might be a lofty task, but talk about Katy, and then we'll talk about some of these other squads.
Yeah, you could say, I suppose, that last year was a quote unquote down year for Katy. But that being said, they still finished 10-2 and won the district title with an undefeated record. So I'm not sure how exactly down it really was, but when you have a program of that caliber, the expectations every year are to be in the mix for a state title. So certainly those expectations are remaining high under legendary coach Gary Joseph. And the thing with Katy last year is they lost a 3-year starting quarterback to graduation. They lost this guy named Seth Davis, a running back who became their all-time leading rusher, and is now at Mississippi State. So those were huge losses for this offense. I thought that junior quarterback Gunnar Nelson really stepped up and played well. Managed the offense well, did some really good things at times. And I think, as you mentioned, Tremaine Hill, as a sophomore, really had a breakout year, kind of taking on the lead back role, over nearly 1,400 yards and 18 rushing touchdowns. And so I think, obviously, he'll be a focal point for this Katy offense again this year. It's going to be interesting to see, some of the growth from some of the younger players that they put out on the field last year. But yeah, I mean, you have to always respect that Katy name and the tradition, and what they do year in and year out is just really impressive. And so, I think that they've got to be the favorites coming back for sure. As far as the rest of this district goes, I feel like it's going to be really competitive. Obviously, Tompkins is always in the mix. They had another really solid year last year. Katie Taylor jumped up in the mix last year, which was really cool to see. Jordan, a young program. It's really been cool to see their kind of emergence. They've got a dynamic playmaker in Andrew Marsh at wide receiver coming back. I mean, he's the most dangerous player coming back in this district, I believe. Just a sensational talent, one of the top receiver recruits in the country. And then, Cinco Ranch and Morton Ranch have also been in the mix, in recent years. And Pato went 2-8 last year, but they're not too far removed from winning the state championship in Class 5A and being competitive in 6A as well. So, it's going to be really interesting to see. But I year in and year out, we know this district is going to be competitive. We're always sending our report. It feels like, the last few weeks of the regular season, we're sending a bunch of our reporters out to a bunch of these Katy ISD games because there's still so much to be, decided at that point in the season. And so, it's going to be really fun once again, I think.
Yeah, that's it. You made a couple good teams that I want to kind of bring back up, especially Jordan. Can they fill in the spots of Colin Willits, and how easy will it make for whoever that new quarterback is to have a guy like Andrew Marsh, who's just such a playmaker, like you said? I mean, last year, Zachariah Sample had the experience, but Andrew Marsh really kind of outshined him. That tells you what kind of athlete he is. You talked about Taylor as well. They were very opportunistic in some of these games to sneak some wins and get into the playoffs. And then lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about Pato, where they really seem to have internal issues with I know their head coach had some issues over the last 2 years. They really couldn't get the offense going. They had some stud defensive players, but it was the offense that kind of struggled for them. Can they get their footing in this district as well? I hate to hit you with 3 questions at once, but do your best to answer all of them.
Yeah. Well, let's start with Jordan. Obviously, the loss of quarterback Connor Willits is a big one. He was really productive in his time there with the Warriors, but all I can say is whoever's going to be, behind center for Jordan, just find Andrew Marsh, just look for him, and just throw that guy the football. And I think everything will be all right. They're one of these teams that obviously they lose a guy like Willits, and that's a big loss. But they have plenty of dudes coming back as well. I like their chances to be really competitive. Let me try to think about this. Katie Taylor next is what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were some. I think the way that Taylor was coached last year, and their strategy in some of these games and what they were able to do, they jumped up and maybe beat some teams that had more talent than them, which was key in their success and ultimately doing what they did, and finishing 5-3 in the district. Yeah, but I mean, a lot of credit goes to their coaching staff for the year that they had last year, and they had some talented kids as well. But I like the direction that program is headed. And as far as Pato goes, the issues with the previous coach, that's all in the past now, as far as I'm concerned, and can tell. I think Coach Hicks has done a good job of establishing a really solid culture, and I give him a lot of credit for what he's been able to do, taking over that kind of situation, and really getting the kids to buy in and stay with him. I know they were all super excited when he was finally named the head coach after kind of serving as the interim, when all the previous stuff went down. So as I said, Peto is not too far removed from being competitive, and so I would expect for them to maybe be a team that kind of gets back on track. They have they have some talent there for sure. They always do. I mean, that's never been the issue. So I like their chances.
Yeah, me too. And bringing up Coach Hicks, I got a little advice for you. Make sure if you go out and do an interview, don't shake his hand unless you're planning on having go heading to the hospital to work on the fracture of several of your fingers. That dude's got a grip. Good Lord, he's got a grip. So I feel like it'll be Jordan Katie. I think Jordy Taylor Tompkins, and I'm probably going to go with the fourth one going to Morton Ranch. I just think Taylor. I don't know. I don't know if Taylor can make it this year. We'll see. Do you have any four that you think that may make it in the playoffs besides Katie, of course?
Well, I'll tell you what, with Morton Ranch is interesting. I'm glad you mentioned them, because Coach Cavalos is coming up from George Ranch, where he had a lot of success, as we all know. And so I think that they're going to be a program to watch as well. As I mentioned before, they're not far removed from being in the playoff mix as well. And so they're certainly a team to watch. And so really, when you're talking, I mean, we've discussed pretty much almost all of these teams here. And so I think it's going to be interesting. If I had to pick four right now, I'd probably go Katie, Tompkins, Jordan, and Cinco Ranch. I mean, I don't think we've touched on Cinco Ranch quite enough, but they're gonna be back. They really showed some signs. They had some younger players step up last year. They lost a record-setting quarterback in Gavin Rutherford from the year before, and so they kind of went through a little bit of growing pains, but still, I mean, just to finish 6-4 in this district, 5-3 in this district. I thought that was really encouraging that they've kind of sustained that success. So I kind of like them, and I kind of like the Cougars and what they can achieve this year as well. So those would be my four as of now. But as I mentioned, each and every year this district is so competitive. So I wouldn't be surprised to see any of these teams jump up into the mix.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And with a 9-team district, they only got the two non-district, and then they got to get right at it. And there's not room for error there. You can't really take too many L's, or that's going to come back to haunt you. Yep. All right, John, I appreciate it. We got 26A next week, and that is an interesting, I want to call that a hodgepodge district, but a lot of 5A teams got pushed up in there, and it's interesting. We'll discuss it next week.
Sounds good.